Kia ora and welcome to the Aotearoa Rugby Pod once again. All Black Springboks week, the best week of the year, every year. I can't wait to get into this game. Springboks looking so good. The All Blacks, well, doing better than they were a little bit, a few weeks ago. So we'll see how that all comes together. We're going to really get into that. A bit of a deep dive into what New Zealand rugby culture looks like in comparison to South African rugby culture, training methods, skill sets, all of those things with our special guest, Paul Feeney, who's been with the Stormers, been with the Blues, so he knows it from both sides, knows a little bit about the players in the current Springboks as well, having worked with them with the Stormers. So we'll get into a bit of that, of course. Alongside me, I've got the two blokes who are always here. Great to have Bryn Hall in the studio, as ever.
I'm missing the pink, mate.
Why?
But, we do look...
There's a few ranges that we do get given.
We're looking the same.
Yeah.
And James Parsons, straight into it.
Yeah, straight into it. Straight in as always.
And of course, we'll get into your questions as well as ever for the Players Sport Gilbert Ball. And we've got the Sam Whitelock book that we promised to give away last week for everyone as well. So we'll get into all of that as we go. But let's welcome in our guest, Paul Feeney. Paul, welcome to the show.
Evening, men. How are you all? How are you?
Very well,
Good,
mate.
thanks, Retta. Good, thanks, mate.
You're in Japan?
Yeah, coaching at NEC with Wayne Pivac, second year, so enjoying that. Just started the pre-season again.
Skills and exits and those things, that's your specialty?
Yeah, that's what I did at the Chiefs last year. I was into the exits. At the moment, I'm doing defence. Last year, did attack with NEC. So bit of all those. But I coached in South Africa for 3 years, and I was focused on the skills the whole time, and I did attack 1 year and defence another.
Just with the attacking side of the Springboks at the moment, I think the way that they're attacking, we've touched on it quite a lot with the kind of evolving post the World Cup. Have you always seen that when you were even there at the Stormers? You obviously have an attacking brand and how you want to play the game. Have you been excited to see the South Africans in the way that they're playing at the moment? Yeah,
I've seen that South Africa's keen to attack, Bryn. I still question under the pump whether they'll revert back to type. I know Russie's a very smart man, and he's just going to bring it in very slowly. So over the next 3 years, once they hit the World Cup, they'll be up and running and good to go, because he obviously realises that they've got to do a little bit more than what they have to win the last two World Cups. The game one against Australia, I saw them, their intent to move the ball now in places they wouldn't have previously, around halfway, for example. At least when they see they've got a 5-on-3, just playing heads-up football and calling for the ball out the back of the pod and looking to have a bit of a crack, whereas previously they just looked to kick for territory and play their territory pressure game. So there was 2 or 3 instances I saw that they are looking to use the ball where possible. Otherwise, they do it obviously after they win scrum penalties or when they dominate at set piece.
Does that, do you think, provide an in or an opportunity for the All Blacks if that's a style they do play, or do you think they'll revert to type with this first test?
I think at Ellis Park, altitude, with the team that Russie can put on the park, they'll just look to bash the All Blacks. They're going to, first and foremost, revert back to their set piece, their pressure game with territory and their harsh line speed, which the All Blacks have always struggled to play against. So I think we'll definitely see that. And when they get 1 or 2 opportunities, if the All Blacks get a bit tight defensively, defending the big boys, trying to get some doubles, I'm sure that they will be looking for, under Tony Brown, they'll be looking for a few opportunities to play where possible.
In terms of the line speed pressure, because that's an Achilles heel not only with the All Blacks, but I feel like in World Rugby at the moment, especially playing against a South African team, what would be some of the trends that you would do to try and nullify that? What's the best way for the All Blacks? We talk around gain line percentage and being able to win that, but is there any other areas that you think that the All Blacks could use to try and get around that line speed pressure?
I remember I was coaching the Stormers 2019 when Jacques Nienheimer first brought that in, and I used to go and watch the Springboks train before the World Cup against Western Province, and I thought it was crazy how hard up and in they went. But no one's really knocked them off, Bryn. But I certainly think, we'd play them 2019 or we lost to England. The first receiver, if he takes the ball hard to the line like a Bowden Barrett, you'll never get the ball to the numbers because we've overcommitted on the inside. So I think playing off the second attacker with an early pass needs to be done reasonably deep, and we have to go out of our comfort zone and be prepared to get caught way behind the advantage line once or twice. So a bit of risk and reward. You might get caught behind the advantage line, but then you can just kick downfield or put up a bomb, turn them around and let them play in their half. But I think if you did that, the rewards would be you'd be able to get the ball into space from there. And the South Africans would feel uncomfortable having to come up even further if you stood a bit deeper. So, yeah, I just think you have to play off your second attacker like your 12 or a 15 playing at second receiver with a big skill set who can kick, run or pass, depending on what you see.
Looking at the wingers as well, and we think of Will Jordan and Caleb Clark if they repeat those guys starting, and I mean, Will in particular, his work off the ball and what he created by hovering in and around the back of a Damien McKenzie, a Bowden Barrett, and the fear, I suppose, he puts into defences. Has he got a massive role and he could be a massive bailout option if they feel that line speed pressure coming from the inside of someone and popping on their outside shoulder? Because that is hard to defend when someone comes into your channel out of nowhere when you're sort of trying to close time and space and you can't slow your foot speed.
I feel more, JP, that we need to pick and go a bit against line speed.
Yeah.
We need to suck them in, so then they lose numbers. So then they haven't got confidence in numbers when they're all getting dragged into a bit of a shit fight around that ruck area. So I feel a few little quick picks. Artie's good at that. You get an explosive winger to pick off the first set piece phase. Bang bang, couple of quick picks, drag them in a little bit. That cuts their numbers down if they want to fly. I also think just setting your rucks sort of 20 to 25 in from the sideline, it's where you set your ruck, so you've got a big blind, so you've got two sides to attack, and that makes it difficult for defences rather than your blindside ruck only being 10 metres from the sideline, so they don't have to worry about that space. So I think those two are major, and for me the best attacking ruck against line speed is right dead smack in the midfield. They're going to have a rock each side. They're only going to have 5 defenders each side, 2 in the backfield maximum, so only 5 defenders, and they're trying to fly up, and you sweep and have 7 or 8 attackers. Makes life difficult for them if you can hit your second attacker nice and deep.
And that's why you're a career coach, my mate. That right there is absolute gold. Oh, I knew it was going to be good getting you on, mate.
If you're an All Blacks looking at the South Africans, set piece is a big part of it, but what's an Achilles heel that you really think that the All Blacks will be able to get a payout with the South Africans at the moment?
You'd have to match them physically, like we just talked about, in the middle of the field, like carrying. But I certainly believe you've got to take a few risks against their rush defence. Not many people have tried to unpick their rush defence. And, I've looked at the All Blacks for the last few years, and I've always asked the question, England in 2019, Ireland, our losses against Ireland, and South Africa, all our major losses have been against line speed. So I'm just keen to see some All Black attack coaches think outside the square and try to put the ball into space and not be scared to be caught behind the advantage line, 15, 20 metres behind the advantage line.
What you're saying to me is we almost need to focus on ourselves to use their strength as our strength.
Yeah, they're going to come. They just get told, stay connected, get high, and just go and shut down their time and space. And all they're ever going to do is stay connected. They're going to come up, stay with each other and stay connected and leave space on the outside or in behind.
Because I think you're right, Rat. When you're defending and you're coming hard with that line speed, sometimes you want them to be nice and flat, because if it's flat, it's a really small margin of being able to get to that ball carrier. But if you see a second pivot that's quite deep, even though you know that you're going and it's your structure, you're like, that's a long way to go. And it's the 12 or the 13 in behind there has the ability to see him coming, right, then I can actually make a decision. I can go over the top, short ball, or I can kick. But if you're nice and flat and you're at the line, you don't have the amount of time to be able to see all those things and those 3 options.
And you only need one mistake to make you start questioning yourself when it comes to rush D. It is risky. I do really like the idea of Jordy Barrett being that first receiver, though. I think that's a good idea in sense of, like, if they do catch you, that's a bigger body. But then it's also giving us our 2 best eyes and attacking eyes in a Bodie and a Damien time, if they're positioned right.
Maintaining composure seems like something that could be challenging in that situation, though.
But if you do your prep, like no doubt the All Blacks are doing, so let's say if we took this game plan and right, what Rat's saying, you'd be training that the whole week knowing what's coming. So when you actually do get into the game, you know what the prep's coming. So like you've actually got the reps throughout the week. You've got to be able to analysis work of what's coming, what the trend's going to be. So like
But also, what's worst case scenario? You train it. You get caught 50 metres behind the gain line. What are we going to do?
Yeah.
Don't panic. We've expected this. We've planned for it. So your composure is fine.
Yeah, because you've done the prep around it. So I think, but sometimes as well, you look at probably the English Test match. We probably knew that high line speed was coming. You can train it, and then the other point of it, you've got to be able to feel it as well. So if they felt that in the English series, they probably didn't feel it and against, to a certain extent, probably not the Argentinians in that second Test match, but they'll be prepping and knowing that this is coming.
What do you mean feeling it? What do you mean by that?
So like you can go through all the training week and being able to get, right, you've got a great plan, you're going to feel like line speed, you know it's going to be coming, but sometimes there might be a slow ruck, you know, you might want to be able, in training, you're getting over the advantage line. There's almost that like false security that you've got there and you've actually got more time than you actually think. So when you're in game, and I probably think of their English series, we weren't able to get that ball to the edge. And so then if you're a coaching group and you're coming back in as an attack group the next week, right, this is what it felt like. We didn't get the gain line success that we've harped on a lot about. So then what's the solution? Right, let's take a little bit deeper. But if we want to play a little bit flatter, maybe get the winger it's a little bit tighter or loose forward that's on the edge so we can get that pass away because we might be too far away from the pass.
Thank you for your time, Paul. Really appreciate it.
Good to see you.
Okay, lads. A lot of those guys, Sam Darry, Wallace Atiti, they haven't played over there. They don't know much about South African rugby other than what they've seen on TV. On the flip side, the South Africans don't see the All Blacks that much either. So will they be able to handle the kind of thing if they can do what Paul was talking about?
I think because they'll be so well prepped and they'll come with some unique ideas in terms of the preparation. Like, you know, Rusty's going to... I don't know, he'll have them ready for the unexpected. But I do think if they were to follow what Rat was saying of that, you know, a Geordie Barrett at pivot and you know, that second deep pivot being really crucial and trying to draw that line speed out to then be able to manipulate it. And a down line from Mariko Ioane with a Will Jordan coming around, you can see how it could work and put fear, which would slow the line speed. Same as the picks through the middle. We have shown that at times, but not relentlessly. And they're two areas that we'd have to back the skill set to get around it. But we have to be comfortable if they catch us once or twice to, you know, just keep with it, keep trusting it, keep that composure and know that it's going to work. Will the South Africans be, if we get around them, yes, it'll spook them. I think they're so confident and they're so focused on themselves and their systems that it won't be so much of a focal point, the All Blacks. And I honestly feel like the All Blacks maybe did that against Argentina in the second test. And I think if we can just narrow down what we can control, which is ourselves and our game plan, and come up with something that the whole squad believes in and stick to it, even when it doesn't quite go right, could be our biggest silver bullet to a victory.
Okay, that brings me to Leon MacDonald and Scott Robertson, because it's pretty clear that was an issue from what you see and what you read. They weren't on the same page at all. We saw a big change in that second Argentina test just before Leon MacDonald left. So I'm imagining that before that test match, things were brought back and maybe some of those issues that were between the two of them were kind of cancelled. We talk about coaches that aren't getting along. How difficult is it for a team to get through that, Bryn, when you've got disagreement on game plan, when you've got disagreement on how things need to function?
It is tough, and I think Jipper and I have probably been a part of a lot of teams that you can just tell when coaches aren't aligned, and I think it's for a group you can actually feel that. And I'm not saying that was the case with the All Blacks, but just when you talk about coaches that aren't aligned, it actually does have a bit of an impact on the group. So, you know, there were times in my career where coaches were having different messages and then players start thinking, man, were they really talking about the same things? And then it's infiltrated into the group. The younger guys are seeing that kind of happening, and so you actually end up becoming more aware and looking out for not being aligned. But I think at the same time, you know, you got two guys, Leon and Razor, two alpha dogs. And maybe, you know, they had the ambition to be able to try weaker. They had success at under-20s level. They had success at the Crusaders, and they'd played together as well. You know, maybe just that time apart that when Leon went into the head coaching role with the Blues, maybe the way and the structure of how he felt that things should be run and maybe having an assistant role, maybe it just didn't come together. And from all accounts, there actually wasn't a lot of hostility from what, you know, I guess around the traps that it could be. So
what it sounds like to me, and this is where it can get dangerous, if you can't leave the game plan meetings or the game leaders and coaches coming together for that game plan, because it's almost like it's a vote in a way, a vote of confidence for the one that more people are behind, and then there's that rule of disagree and commit. And if you can't actually go outside that door and disagree and commit, it becomes a problem, because you get little segregations and little cliques because it's not like everyone doesn't agree with the style of play, but it's almost like an 80-20 rule. If we get 80 on board, we're all on board. If you can't get the 80-20 rule and the 20 can't get on board, then these are the sorts of decisions that have to be made. And that's why I just think, man, it's a credit to both their characters and the respect they have for the All Black jersey that they've done it now, because they would have known the public scrutiny and the heat that would come with it, but they were like, no, it's not really about that. It's actually about what's best for this team and what's best for the jersey and the legacy that's gone before it. And they've made the best decision for it. I genuinely think they have, because no one knows it better than them.
Yep.
They know what's going on internally. So if it's not workable, then it is the best thing. Like I'm surprised that it hasn't waited to the end of the season. But I suppose the one thing I would say back to you, Brynner, is did you pick anything up during the 2017 season before Leon moved on?
No.
Because you would have been in the sort of game driver position.
I'm not. Leon was in the defence. So he was pretty much running our defence and doing our exits. So even though it was for only a year, Brad Moore was doing our attack, and it was never really that kind of feel. So I think just possibly, maybe the experience at the Blues and being able to be a head coach and being able to run his own program and seeing what I guess somewhat success looks like with having that turnaround with the Blues, and maybe just thought, this is the way that I see how it's run, and maybe the disagreements that were happening behind closed doors in terms of what it might be, maybe selection or the way he sees the game, or maybe the groups of how it's run, something that he just wasn't aligned with it. So
it's also though, like all of us in any role, you want autonomy. And if you feel micromanaged, and there is an element that maybe he had a philosophy of how to attack, and then he couldn't get it across. So lack of autonomy, lack of control, and at the end of the day, it's his name that's attached to the attack structures. And if he can't coach what he wants to coach, there's no reason to stay, really.
When you consider the rest of the coaching group outside of Jason Holland have worked together a lot at the Crusaders. They really know each other. So if you do have something different, the chances are they're all aligned.
Yeah, but I think if you look at Razor specifically as a head coach, man, like at the time, the decision to not play Wyatt Crockett, like he's not afraid to put what's best for the team. And if he thinks this is what's best for the team, he's made the decision. Yes, it's been amicable, and yes, I do believe that, Rangi's been part of that decision, but they could have tried to patchwork it in South Africa, but it was like, no. And history shows Razor's good at that. Yeah,
and I think with Leon leaving, I think the coaches that they have in there is going to be able to be pretty seamless. I think, Scotty does attack and defence anyway, just with the way that he thinks about the game, so you'd have to think that he'd move into attack, Tarms as well. He's worked with the Crusaders in the defence role, so you'd have to think that he'd be in the defence, and then I think they'll keep the status quo with Jason Holland being backs, attack, defence, and Jason and Ray keeping all the forward. So I think coming back to the synergy, I think within that group, obviously with Leon going, they're not going to lose a lot. They'll be pretty, I guess, next job and being able to be ready for South Africa. So I don't think it changes a lot with the guys that are there now.
But I also do want to make the point, it would be unfair to say that that's just listen to Razor. I want to go back to the point that you've got to be able to have that robust discussion, but even though if you don't get your way, you've got to disagree and commit. And it would be unfair to say that those guys are just yes people, but they've obviously got to, Razor has the final say. He's the head coach. At the end of the day, it falls with him. So they've got to put their case forward. If for whatever reason it's 50-50, he gets to decide.
Yeah.
And they'll have that robust discussion. So I do want to make it really clear, this isn't about yes people. One of Razor's strengths is the fact that he's put people around him that sort of cover his blind spots, and this group has proven to do that.
Well, he even said that in his interview. He said when Leon came on board, he thought of the positive and Leon thought of the negative. But he knows that, he needed that, or that's some of the the strengths that he needed for someone to be able to do that and give that to Ray. So, and that's not just Leon as an example, but there's obviously other people that you look at. Scotty as well, Scott Hansen, very attention to detail. So his area around being able to be attention to detail, defence now and attack, or whoever the other guys are there as well. Jason Ryan keeps him in check as well. So it's pretty good in terms of like Razor understanding that he has but there's things that aren't strengths of his, and the coaches reflect, I guess, the areas where he needs work on and with what they do. I'm
interested in the disagree and commit, because that flows off your tongue quite easily. So it's obviously a thing that happens regularly. Is that a normal part, week on week on week?
If you're in those meetings, it's normally like senior leaders or game drivers, and like everyone will look at clips and come up with, okay, I think we can take here, attack here, and this suits our systems here, and this is what I think, and it's a round table, and then we grab ideas, and it's like, do we agree with this? And someone may be like, I don't think that's going to work. And there's 9 other people. You've got to go, I'll get on board with it. It's fine. I've had my say. I'm happy that I've had my say. You guys wanting to do it one way, I want to do it the other, but I'm the minority, and you've got to disagree and commit. That is how a team splits, because it's like parenting. Like if there's a chink in an armour, if you let them in, it can the house of cards can fall pretty quickly, and the manipulation and the way you draw attention and the focus comes off what's most important. So it's no different. Like it is, like even people will see a different way to discipline a child or not discipline a child, or raise a child, but you have a conversation away from the child and go, this is how we're going to do it, and you disagree and commit. It's very much the similar process. And
one of the players ends up with an ice cream when they
But I think the commitment side of it is a big part of it. Like Chip, we would have been a part of attack meetings or defence meetings. Like you're always in meetings, but once there's disagreements, because you're always going to have those kind of conversations of, I don't think, like what you're saying, Jip, I don't think that's going to work. I don't think this is going to work. But then once you finish that meeting, for the better of the team, you accept that responsibility and say, all right, I got my point across, but once that finishes, whether I disagree with it or not, we're moving forward and then going all steam to be able to try and commit for what the whole team needs.
But role clarity is crucial.
Yeah.
Because if you think you're in charge and you're not, it's not great. There's also different types of personalities. So there's people that want to be in those meetings and want to cut clips and want to orchestrate how to manipulate defence. But there's people out there, just tell me what I need to do. I just want to move bodies. Don't confuse me. Don't you be off there having one conversation, you be over, because then you're confusing people that don't want to be in part of the argument. They just want to know how we're playing. That's how it can snowball out of control.
And when you're 34 players plus, in some cases, 5 or 6 coaches plus your physios, I'm imagining you walk out.
Clarity of role is massive.
But also, not grumbling once it's happened. But do you need to have a person in the team who can grumble too? Because that's kind of the human way. You need to have someone you can lean on who goes, okay, I get it.
So when the pressure, this is why pre-season and time together before the season is crucial, because you put a set of principles in place.
Right.
And when the pressure's not on, what do we agree to? Okay, and then if there's any sort of grumbling and you want to go over here, come back to the principles. What did we agree when we weren't under pressure? We're now under pressure, we have to live these. And that is a massive part of getting through, because that happens. We're all human beings. You all have, that resent, but you've got to be reminded of what you've been agreed to get you back on the track together.
And I think leaders play a big part in that. Most of the time, they can actually just nip it in the butt. So sometimes you can feel, you've been captain a lot, and understanding, like when you see a group and you see some individuals that are kind of rumbling or being able to go against the grain, the good leaders in their own way, maybe for example, like Sam Whitelock, for example, he can tell me, mate, pull your finger out and being able to, you got to get your prep right or your clarity right. I'm like, sweet as. But that same messaging won't work if it's on someone that has a different personality. So it's being able to get within that leadership group. Mostly you'd have different guys with different strengths, and they might be able to go talk to another guy that's in that leadership group saying, all right, I've seen this guy, but I need to talk to him in a different way. So I think leadership groups, I think, have a massive part in being able to, I guess, just nip it on the butt. And the coaches really don't even come in and talk about it, because the leaders within themselves have identified it and then been able to try to fix it on the run.
But the one thing I learned as a captain, because I've made every mistake known to man, don't worry about that. But that's the only way you can learn. And the one thing I'll always stand by that changed my ability to lead others was to have that robust debate and then get agreement prior to pressure. So you've got the whole group. This is how we're going to operate. This team's going to do, game plan. This team's going to do D. This team's going to do set piece. Do we all agree? Okay, and then you get them to deliver back to the group. These are the principles we stand by. So when we get under pressure, this is how we're going to behave and this is how we're going to go about operating. So you get the whole group to agree, but then we've got individual teams and roles within that, and there's players out there that just tell us and don't bring your arguments out, and then once you're in those positions, in those mini-groups, it's this is how we operate. And that was the biggest lesson I learned. Once you get that agreement, then you can get the accountability.
Yeah, I was just going to say that.
Where does it fall over? Okay, well, now we need to go back to what have we put in place? Okay, the accountable, we didn't nail it, what didn't we nail? Then the results will be a byproduct of that. If you miss the step of debate and have the discussion, include everyone in that, if you're not part of the discussion, what are you agreeing to? And then 6 weeks in, we're on a 2-game losing streak. I'm like, hey, no, this is how we do it. Well, I didn't agree to that. You don't want to have the discussion then, do you?
Yeah.
So that's why that prep work and that pre-season time is massive for the group to be able to operate under pressure, because what you do in silence as such will come out under pressure.
I'm imagining in the case of the Springboks, they've had that group, they've had that coaching set up.
They've had it from the Stormers.
They've had it from a long way. They're in a place where they understand those processes very well.
Rusty's coached them, even through Super Rugby. They are very, but it's exactly, as Paul said, it's like the golden era. I said to my South African mate, we have barbs and jokes, but I said to him, enjoy this, because you almost take it for granted when you're in it. You're like, oh yeah, we're going to win. But just enjoy it, because it will end.
Yeah.
As we've learned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You get so much confidence when being how they are right now. You tune into to work every single day, and there's an expectation that you're going to win, but you don't miss the step, the preparation that group's doing on an everyday basis. They've been a part of 2 World Cup cycles now. So those guys and the continuity and the synergy that they have within that group, they'll be going out onto a field.
Forget, they were in a hair's whisker of winning the 2015 semi-final. They've been top dot.
And a lot of those players are still there,
for a long time.
They're still there. So this isn't obviously internationally, but we'd have my time at the Crusaders, especially at the back end of my tenure. We just knew going into games the confidence that we had, because we'd been through every single scenario. How to win a game tight, how to win a game with a lot of points, coming back from situations, having conversations throughout the week and trying to talk solutions. So that group in there are there right now. There's just so much continuity within the group, and guys that have played massive experience in test matches, won big games, and now they're more so at, right, we've done that, but they're seeing that from what I can see, they think they're the number 1 team in the world. So their training habits, the habits that they'll have every single day, will be at that top echelon where probably the All Blacks have been for the majority of
to the point
rugby.
They won't even have to yell. Leaders won't yell, because if a leader's yelling, you've probably made a lot of mistakes as a leader. Because they trust each other, and it's just going to work like a smooth machine.
They're driven. They look
but
like
a couple of goats go, and
Yeah.
maybe a coach. The house of cards can fall pretty quickly, because there's so much unseen work those people do that others may not know. So I do think Rusty's got a real big focus on upskilling the next to understand the roles these players are going to play, so it's that sustained success.
So when we look at our emails and all the messages each week, there's usually kind of 20 of them, and there's a wide range of things. This week, there were so many emails about the bomb squad. How does it work? Why does it work? How can the All Blacks counter it? Now, we can't get through all of them, so just going to have a quick look, I suppose, at the anatomy of it and what is real and what's not real about the bomb squad. And I think I'd like to start with the image that's in my head of that Twickenham game, where they brought 7 blokes on at once in the 46th minute. That is not the bomb squad. That is an irregularity. If you look through the stats,
Dynamite.
more often than not, they bring on 2 players at a time, and then they'll bring another 2 players on. And it might be from the 50th minute through the 60th minute, but that idea that they all come on at once every week is not at all true based on what we see from the substitution patterns over time. But what then is the key, Bryn? What is the key about the way that they make those combinations and bring them on that means the South Africans are using their bench so much better than everyone else?
Well, they're used to it. It's a part of their DNA. So, probably in most teams, in just general rugby and international rugby, you're drip-drabbing your substitutes. But Rusty's done this for a very long time. So, the players are pretty clear in terms of, right, I know that I'm going to be on, I'm going to be having this amount of time. So, the continuity and understanding of, having that on a regular basis gives you really good clarity in terms of going into a game. If you're Malcolm Marx, he probably knows that I'm going to get on the field anywhere between 35 and 50, that's my time. So mentally, I'm not playing the game. I'm not waiting for the game to come to you. I know that I'm going to be on there. So you talk around clarity and being able to be real decisive. You've got a pretty clear idea of exactly when you're going to be on. So like, I know for sometimes when I was sitting down on the bench, I'm like, man, when am I going to get on? Or like, and the kind of anxiety that I just have wanting to play the game before it's been played. But they've got a clear plan as a bomb squad. I'm going to be on and I can execute knowing that I'm going to get on the field, which is really important if you're coming off the bench.
Yeah, I look at it a little bit differently because when you're the top dog, like I think the All Blacks, with Ted, Wayne Smith and Steve Hansen created this 23-man squad. I mean, it was talked about for years. Oh, the All Blacks use their bench so well in the 23-man squad, and they even said it in press conferences. This is a 23-man game, and this is the balance of the squad. This is what we need. So, I don't think the 23-man squad I just think it's the hype of the bomb squad. But I do think it's key. The points you make is like it's not. They haven't actually changed the whole front row at once a lot. Yes, they've done it here and there, and we always remember it because it's exciting, and everyone is interested in it. Could they do it this weekend? Yeah, I think they will. Like when they do it for the big occasion, they do it to spark a reaction, a fear, a question. We heard Rat before saying if you can make the Springboks question their systems, then you've got an in. So will we see something different this week? Surely. You have to expect it because Russie has pulled it out, especially against us. Like this is his golden goose. He wants 2-0, so he'll have something special. So I honestly think it's a branding thing. Like branded as the bomb squad, so it creates this massive focal attention to it. But I don't think it's that new.
Well, it's quite clearly connected to the 6-2 split as well, which was quite uncommon until the 2019 World Cup, where Russie really brought that on based on the science of, players being less tired towards the end and coming on.
He's going to have all 8 this week.
He's going to have all 8. Well,
8-0.
We saw 7 in that Twickenham game, right? And we saw them all come on all at once. But they also...
There is a risk, though.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to run a 7-1 split and there's an injury, you run the risk as well.
Yeah.
So we probably just haven't seen them, that it's kind of blown up in their face. So, like...
Well, 6-2 can blow up in your face. You just can use the Blues Hurricanes this year.
So they've been lucky in that sense. We've never really, against us, or any really, that they've had that kind of trouble. So surely they're due it. They're due a bit of misfortune when it comes to it.
I think the other interesting thing about the way that they approached the bomb squad, heading into that 2019 World Cup, the starting team, if you took the tight 5, had 57 tests average each. I mean, that was put up by Etzebeth having 78 and the Beast having 100 odd. But the ones coming on afterwards, there was an average of 25 tests. So they're all relatively experienced, plus arguably the better players on form at that time. If the All Blacks are to follow, do they have that depth of experience, that depth of talent in the same way in order to execute a bomb squad the way that the South Africans do, Jim?
It's just different. Yes, they do. Like, as we sort of used an offer and a Tamati Williams, that could be theoretically because Tamati, although he was fantastic starting, man, he is quite the freak of an athlete with ball in hand and defensively. And against tiring bodies, it doesn't matter how good you are, he's someone that can make a difference and sort of bring it home. Not that offer can't, but I just think if we are to win this test, we've got to put our most dominant collision experts, and you run down Offa's channel, you're not coming back. Doesn't matter how big you are. Similar to a Sam Cane. So there is potential for change to create a bomb squad, but I just don't want us to do that. I just want us to do what we did in the second test against RG, and you could just see the way they played was, what can we control? What are we really good at? Yes, we know what's coming. We acknowledge that. But what within our systems and structures are we really good at, and what can we go to that's going to beat that rush D? Well, how can we make that a weakness? How can we make them second guess?
And I think if you look at the Argentinian game, if you look early on, the attacking kicks that they were able to put in behind, and what that does mentally in terms of your defence, for maybe a 5-10 minute span, just because you've seen that, it just holds you a second where you might not be able to come up a little bit harder in the middle of the field, those first 3-4 defenders, which in turn gives those guys opportunities to get over the advantage line,
well,
be able to get out the back.
Try.
Exactly.
They were hesitant.
Yep.
So he had time to cut a line because of the chip kick.
Yep.
previously.
But if you're the South Africans, they'll know, right? No different from the All Blacks. They'll be thinking, analysing, being able to, that's going to be coming. So they might have their halfback that ends up being in that pivot role, in that boot role, being able to cover that space. But what that might do is, especially with Faf de Klerk quite a lot, they like to defend on the edge, and they're usually one of the best communicators. So you talk around the reference around getting to the middle of the field. If that halfback isn't on that edge, and the All Blacks want to pull trigger because there's no back that's coming to be able to be where that halfback is, they might pull trigger and go down the edge. So it's a battle. It's really a chess match in terms of like when we have our opportunities, especially in phase play, we might get 3 or 4, and we've got to be able to try to take it.
I do think, like, in terms of personality, because Rusty's orchestrated this whole thing. He's brilliant. He's like the Rain Man, the beautiful mind. Like, you'd love to live in there just for an hour to see what goes on. But Razor, I think, is the same. He's an innovator.
Yeah, I agree.
He wants to be first. He wants to change things up. So I don't think we can just expect we're just going to roll out the same stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think there'll be a little bit of special, sauce for the All Blacks and what they can show the Springboks.
And Razor's always big around the step ahead. He always wants to try to be a step ahead. And the word that he's been using a lot is adjusting on the run. Scott Hansen used it when we had that Zoom with him, adjusting on the run and being able to see what's in front of you and not being able to, if plan A is not working right, what's plan B, what's plan C. So, and knowing Razor, everything is going to be talked around of like what if scenario. So,
but what are you great at? Like, the guy is optimistic. The guy is a positive beast. Like, he is going to be empowering the players. What are you good at? Let's see it. Trust it. You see it, trust it. I've got your back.
The theming will be massive within that group as well. And don't underestimate how much of a massive influence that has on players, like the visual and being able to, how that'll be, whether that's ex-All Blacks speaking or being able to show a visual of like maybe a World Cup win or a 95 with Fitzy putting his hands up in the air or something like that, or Marshy, like the theming.
Second test last year.
The theming will be massive. So that group will be going into Ellis Park that prepared and that hungry of an opportunity. That's how they'll be seeing it. They'll be walking towards it.
I hope they don't go 95. I hope they go 96.
Sorry, not 96.
They honestly
95 could be all right.
They might do Twickenham. There's a lot of similar bases in there, and that still be hurting players. So there'll be an element of, look at how great it is. This is what we could be feeling. Don't do this. And it's not like, because you can't not talk about the elephant in the room, because then everyone's thinking about the elephant. So you might, I do think he's got a good balance of touching on the negative and a positive, if that makes sense. Not that it makes you scared or hesitant, it makes you see it as an opportunity to overturn it.
Because I remember, when we went to Joburg, this is obviously isn't test, but it's going to a daunting task. And I remember the final that we had there. The way we felt going into that game was just so like clear-headed and just almost frothing, being able to go out there and not play the game because of what the messaging was, how it was being built through the week. And when you got to the end of the week, you were just that ready to go. And so I can imagine at test level, like what's going to be said in that group, not only just from Ray, but what the leaders will be driving to be aligned with that coaching group. And so, it's going to be, they'll be feeling ready to go come kick off in Ellis Park.
You got me fired up.
Oh, mate, this is I am like salivating for this week. Like, even the Aussie RG game, it's all interesting. There's pressure cookers everywhere.
There's plenty to talk about. Well, we've had plenty of emails, as mentioned earlier, about all sorts of bits and bobs. Well, one of my favourite things is when we get an email through from a viewer who's come up with something tactical. They've come up with a game plan, they've come up with a different way of doing things, and they want to test that on the boys to see whether or not it would work in real life. So,
hit us.
This question is from Jacob Guillenty. Jacob, thank you for your question. He says, for at least a decade, our pods have been receiving the ball from the 9 as a way of using our forwards with tip passes, especially good with Aaron Smith there because of his rapid pass, but he doesn't think it's been that effective against Gainline. Is it time to start running the pods off 10? A little bit wider. Damien McKenzie had some success with his line break assists and putting players into space, so why not use that and have Geordie and Bodie who can play out the back? What do you think?
Look, I like the concept and I like what he's thinking, but those bodies have got to go somewhere, and the ball can still go directly to the 10 and play the second pod outside the 10, if you know what I mean. So there's two pod systems, then you've got your edge systems. But it's also, that pod is quite crucial, although it doesn't look effective. And as mentioned earlier with Paul Feeney, sometimes you take the ruck yourself to create fast ball. Like, they have a role to shorten up the defence, or you take that quick run and it's a quick pick and go. So what may seem like it's not working is working because you're manipulating defence to then have a crack elsewhere. If that opportunity is not taken, that's no fault of their role in the system because it's a very simple role. And I think we're seeing less and less of tip because of the rush D. So you'll see a lot of out carries to try and get 4 legs versus 2.
Out carries?
So if you're the middle guy, instead of trying to stay square and give the tip to create that seam where they go for on the outside shoulder of your defender, you see a lot of guys, they'll stay square and then they step out, and then you almost meet your mate.
Latching.
And then, well, we're not latching,
Sorry,
so we don't want to get penalised, but we're meeting at the same point, and then basically it's 4 legs.
It's all marketing, eh?
Yeah. There's 4 legs, potentially and hopefully against 2. And then you're not trying to get 50 metres, but if you get 3 or 4 metres, that's a great carry. And that's a quick clean. You've got your person that's supporting you through that contact, who's behind you, of course, not in front of you. And then they almost clean that corner, and it's quick ball. You only need 1 cleaner.
Yeah.
Beautiful thing.
And if you look at Will Jordan's try against the Argentinians, that concept was used to it perfectly. There was 3 or 4 great carries in terms of that pod system, just getting over that advantage line, which then it takes the defence a little bit tighter. They aren't coming that forward line speed, they're not set ready to go, and they're on their back heels and they can't bring that line speed. And
they're tight. And
then you see Geordie Barrett, nice and square. Rico Ioane draws 2 people in, Will Jordan's out the back.
Yeah.
So.
And if they don't bite on Rico, Geordie will just tip it.
Right, so I'm taking from that the answer is no, there's already not enough time.
Well, we would look silly, like seriously, for Bryn and I, if we agreed it had to get rid of, we have sat in rooms to talk through game plans.
Yeah.
If we had to say on here, oh yeah, do you know what I mean? Like from our point of view, like we've watched a lot of rugby, we've done a lot of clips.
Yeah.
Like it would be ridiculous because we believe in the concept.
Yeah.
If you know the wider game plan, I can get it from a viewer's point of view.
Yeah.
If you don't understand the wider game, I don't know the All Blacks' wider game plan. I question some things just because I don't know, but I know it's because I don't know, and I more question it thinking I really want to know why they're doing that. Yeah. Versus that must stop.
Yeah.
The only way you'd want to go off 10 would be if it's a passive defence,
which never exists,
which isn't in this day and age. So 5-10 years ago, there were teams that would be more like passive to connect, to then get up. But at this day and age, there's just no way that there's no line speed.
Can we just explain why? Because it's time of ball in air. So even if the 10 goes closer, the ball's in the air a long time, okay? So once he gets it, then if you want to play to another pod, ball in air, you're going to get absolutely smoked. The only way it will work is how Paul said, you almost drop back like you're doing a droppy, receive it, and then you go back deeper. Yeah. And then you're drawing the defence out. But it's a ballsy play.
It's a gamble.
It's a massive gamble, but it's a massive gamble for them to keep coming.
Yeah, right. But it sounds like Jesse Creel will come at you no matter what, so you might as well.
Yeah. But if he's got to run 30 metres, he's not Usain Bolt. You've got time to get those passes done. Then you've got time to assess how we're going to manipulate. And then you've got to trust that people are going to make their call, because you're going to have to trust that call, because sometimes you're going to have to just throw it blind.
Yeah.
But that's what makes a great team.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing when it comes to line speed pressure. You've actually got to trust that the guy's going to be there. Like, you could be having the whole week that you know that Colby's going to be coming in. If that guy's not running short and he's not an option, there's no way you can throw that bridge pass, because Colby knows that there's no threat. So I can either go for an intercept, or I don't have to. I can just go spot tackle. There's no animation or deception around that. So like the alignment of where our boys need to be on the edge, or being able to get that phase play shape, everything has to be like a wheel, and it's going. Everybody's going at the same time, and being able to have a cog has to be in.
I can understand the frustration with it though.
Yeah.
Because it looks like it's playing no role.
Well, and it looks like for years there's been a struggle, so it's understandable looking for
But that's why there's less and less tips. It used to be entertaining when there's tips, but defence, it's always going to...
Yeah, they started tackling the passer and the receiver, didn't they? And then the tip kind of went out the window.
You look at what Ireland did a couple of times. So they put a forward and behind, and the tip guy stayed wide, and then everyone's expecting that player to step out to the tip guy, but he stays square and he puts a guy through the hole like a hooker. Yeah. So that's innovation. That's what it may look like moving forward, and then defences will adjust to that, and then other opportunities will come.
Yeah, right. So, Jacob...
Innovation.
Jacob,
people want to be first.
Thank you very much for your question. And while the answer is a no, we love the way that you're thinking.
Only because we'd look like idiots if we agreed to it.
The Players Sports Gilbert Ball coming your way. Thank you very much to Players Sports for supporting the show. And Jacob, you'll get that in the post in the next week or so. Let's move on. Australia-Argentina, the other game this weekend. both of these teams are relatively inconsistent. It's really hard to see them being, a contender obviously towards the end. They're probably out of this competition in the most part. What do you think about Australia and their chances over in Argentina, Jim?
I always get deflated when coaches start putting excuses out before the game and saying, I think it was Fisher, sort of saying, oh, look, we haven't been a 50% test winning side for so many years. We haven't had a 50% winning record in Super Rugby since whatever year. It's almost like you're setting it, just bear with us, we're going to do a couple more losses and, we'll improve.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a double bluff or...
That's been a common message, though. Joe Schmidt has said that it is going to take time. That was his first press conference.
Well, my understanding of Joe Schmidt, he will not accept losses.
Yeah. So that's a public message, not a private message, is what you're saying. And he's probably saying to the team, yeah, look, I'm saying this in public because, look, they've been through a bit and we've got to have a bit of empathy. But actually...
Yeah. Well, I don't know if they get a lot of heat. Between league and... AFL and cricket, football, I don't know.
That's half the problem then, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, you know how to draw fans back. Everyone loves winning.
Yeah.
And I know it's not that simple, but I don't know, just maybe it's because, as everyone says, like, I'm a glass half full sort of guy. Like, you want to go over there. I don't know. If I read that as a player, I'd be like, what? I'm coming to win. I don't care what's gone before me. We've got to come over here and believe. So... but then Argentina are unpredictable. You don't know where their headspace is at. Something will click. It might not be this test, it might be the next one, or it might be this test and not the next. But I think it'll be very close. Australia are a talented side. Like if they can just match up at set piece, like it's just the maul and it's the discipline. If they can shore that up, scrum to a point, but it seems to come and go. But the maul, they just can't stop. So if Creevy and co can get going, late in the game off the bench and there's ill discipline, that's when the game has fallen away for Australia. So I just think they have to almost go to a forward-orientated game and take it to them and know that it's not their strength, but it's also not expected. And then defensively, just take a half metre. You might not get the most line speed, but you're not piggybacking down the field. It would. I think it's why I can't become a coach, because I'd just be stressed as hell.
How many times have we talked about Australia around discipline in moments and games? And I think if you put it on the other side as well, Argentina are exactly the same. So... Yeah,
but I think it's even because I've looked into the Aussie penalty count, and I think I get frustrated in the games. It's when they don't have like a high penalty count. Like some days they've got 9, 10 or 11. Like that's not a high penalty. It's where and when.
Yeah.
That's the killer. It's
it's the dumb stuff.
40 metres out from your goal line, you give South Africa a penalty, a nothing penalty. Like you fall on the wrong side of the ruck and you roll into the halfback's channel.
Corner, line out more.
Yeah, knowing that you can't defend the line out more to save yourself.
Because I've been challenged a bit by people on the street. It's not that high, and it's like, but it's just... there's 6 in the last 20.
You've been challenged on the street about the Wallabies penalties.
Yeah. Because
where does that happen? Does that happen in a restaurant?
Because I haven't articulated it well enough, obviously. So I always apologise too. I always say, look, sorry, I probably haven't articulated myself. So that gets us off to a good start. Not defensive is a good ploy. But then it has made me think, well, actually, it made me go back in, because I always look at it at quarters. I always break it up into quarters. I don't know why, but I like that. And it's knowing that, the second quarter and the fourth quarter are critical. Use Harbour as an example. Yesterday, on average, they'd conceded 15 points in the fourth quarter before yesterday. And it was all through discipline. At scrum time or breakdown. And the game was taken away from them. But they controlled that yesterday.
Funny enough, you actually said that, Chip. The last week, we actually had a referee come in to be able to officiate it. So for 3 sessions that we had an officiating ref.
Yeah.
So they need to bring a ref.
And that's how you do it.
Right.
More time.
Jaco Piper's in with the South Africans.
Yeah.
with the Boks.
Yep.
And it's just not just like on the field, but it's the conversation that you can have off the field and say like, hey, like, look, what's the trend of Ben O'Keefe? Tried to do that yesterday with Paul Williams, didn't go down good for me, so hopefully keep trying. Paul was good. Paul was actually good. For me,
we won't go down that rabbit hole.
We had a good laugh about it. So I think him and Sean Stevenson actually had a nice beer after the game. So
Needed it.
Moving on quickly.
It was good.
Moving on quickly.
Okay, speaking of loopholes, the person who's won the Sam Whitelock autobiography this week is Jordan Gill. Jordan, thank you very much for your email. Found a loophole. He's found a loophole. Looking at Argentina and the new rule about if the opposition don't contest at line-out time, the ball doesn't have to be thrown straight. So, if it wasn't thrown straight to Argentina, they got the ball. He said, well, now, maybe we can look at throwing it straight to the halfback. If you know they're not going to jump.
Specific in there, you can't.
Is
it? Has
it?
to go down the line out, yep.
It has to go down the line.
It has to go down the line out.
Honest.
People have already,
Mate,
no.
I messaged.
No loophole.
I messaged
Read
Ben
the law
O'Keefe.
fully.
Yeah.
I messaged Ben O'Keefe that exact thing.
Yeah.
And been able to say, hey, mate, like, can we just chuck it straight to the line? Sent him a video of the boys doing it. And he was like, nah, you can't do it, mate.
No, and it's written in the full law.
Yeah,
right.
it
So-
actually is.
And they're trial laws, so it
Yeah.
potentially isn't available to everyone. The full description, but no. Well, I mean, that would just
I can see it in your face, mate. Imagine the hooker just chucking it to the halfback.
it would put you out of a job. Anyone could start throwing in, and then hookers are
I'm 0 from 1, mate.
non-existent.
So I need that rule. I'm 0 from 1, mate.
We'll play that again.
Oh, yeah, fair enough.
Fair. Well, then, sorry, Jordan, the answer is no, but it's a really good idea.
And
I
don't
thought about
worry,
it as well.
Every player thought
Yeah,
about
I
it.
thought about it. And I sent it out there, so it's a great question.
Yeah, okay. Well, let's move on to finish the show. Picks for the weekend. Let's start with Argentina versus Australia. What do you reckon? Obviously in Argentina the next 2 weeks. Jep.
I'm going to go Australia.
Australia?
Yep.
I'm going to go draw.
Draw?
Yep.
Mate, if you
That's
pull that
bold.
off, I'm taking you out for dinner.
Yep. I'm going to draw.
Is that why you did it?
No, I'm going to draw because both of them have similar inconsistencies. So
Right.
why don't I just mash it together? 25 all draw. I don't. If I get the number wrong, that's wrong. But if it's a draw, you
Mate,
take
if
me
it's
out
a
for
draw,
dinner.
I'll take you out
Take
for
me out for dinner.
dinner.
Well, you should put $10 down at the tab if you're allowed to, because you're getting a
He isn't.
payout.
So putting my RPA hat on, he's definitely not.
Don't take a line out full and do not put money on at the tab.
No.
Whatever you do.
It'll be a draw, and then dinner's enough for me.
Don't take any suggestions from Jordan or me. Period. Right. Okay. All Blacks versus the Springboks. You know, I know you're both wanting to go All Blacks, but does your heart say, Bryn, that the All Blacks are going to win this game?
Yes, it does. I think we will win the game. With how we played against the Argentinians, and I know the Argentinians aren't to the extent of what the South Africans are, but I think with what we saw, the intent that they played with, and I think we haven't touched on it. We've touched on around the line speed of the Springboks and our gain line percentage, but I think our kicking game as well. If we can kick how we did on our terms, and we went a little bit away from the contestable kicks and the high out, being able to kick long and be in that kick battle, it seemed like it worked for us in the first in that second test match in the first half. I think all the ingredients and maybe doing a few things that Rat talked about with the depth of our pivot to be able to get around that line speed pressure. I think we do have the ingredients to beat the South Africans. It's going to be tough. Like, you know, we're probably underdogs. Probably for the first time in a long time. Definitely underdogs.
Yeah.
There's no probably of that.
Yeah.
So, but there's enough ingredients there for me. I think we can still get the job done.
If you're willing to do a 25-all draw, you're willing to pick the All Blacks away from home.
Yeah. Look, I think for me it's really critical, the team naming. I think 6-2 is important. I will definitely have no question that they're ready for altitude. Nick Gill's one of the most proactive thinkers around this stuff, so they'll be ready. But also making sure they've got that balance and timing of those subs is going to be crucial. 5-3, not saying it's impossible, but I think we have to beat them physically, and we have to beat them up physically for the 80 minutes. I spoke passionately last week. I will pick the All Blacks. I know I'll get abused for it, but I'm not jumping on the bandwagon of accepting losses.
Yeah. Right.
Ross?
I'm going to go South Africa because the statistics would suggest that the South Africans are a better team.
Will you buy us dinner?
And if South Africa win. I'll buy you dinner if New Zealand win.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. South Africa win.
We'll take you out for dinner.
Fair enough. You guys get to split the bill.
Perfect.
Well, I've got to shout Bryn, because there'll be a draw, so Bryn can shout you.
Right, okay. And
Rugby players, tight as hell.
I can't imagine Argentina not winning week one.
You could also put $10 on the draw. You're allowed.
Yeah, look, I am allowed. I'm not a betting
We'll go half. Oh, you're not a betting man? We'll go half. Oh, I can't. Sorry, mate. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Enjoy the game this weekend. There's going to be an absolute ripper between the All Blacks and the Springboks. It's so exciting to see this match and the one the week after. Thank you very much for tuning in once again to the Aotearoa Rugby Pod. Send us an email, aotearoarugbypod@sky.co.nz. Get into the comments section. We're reading them. We'll try to ask your questions if we possibly can, and we'll take plenty of heat for you while reading it too. So, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you to the staff who helped put this show together, from the studio crew to the editors and everybody behind the scenes. Mā te wā.